Dusk, still water, perfect calm. Everyone sees a peaceful reservoir, but what lies beneath? What was swallowed decades ago and never spoken of? Why has the silence lasted so long? The towns are gone. The graves remain. Port Hewitt Reservoir, Texas, where the water guards its secrets until something makes it let go. On March 4, 1918, one of the largest cargo ships in the U.S. Navy simply vanished. No distress signal, no wreckage, no survivors. The USS Cyclops was sailing from Barbados to Baltimore, carrying over 300 crew members and passengers, along with a massive load of manganese ore. The weather was calm. The ship was modern, recently inspected, and considered seaworthy. It never arrived. The last message sent by the Cyclops was unsettlingly ordinary. Weather fair, all well. After that, silence. Search missions covered thousands of miles across the Atlantic and the Caribbean. Not a single piece of debris was ever found. No oil slicks, no lifeboats, nothing. What makes the case even darker is what followed. Two sister ships of the Cyclops, the Proteus and the Nereus, disappeared years later on nearly the same route. All three ships were lost without explanation. Official theories ranged from structural failure due to overloaded cargo to sudden storms or enemy sabotage during World War I, but none fully explain how a ship of that size could vanish without leaving a trace. Some point to the ship's final course, passing near what would later be known as the Bermuda Triangle. To this day, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in U.S. Navy history. No answers were ever found, and officially, the ship is still listed as missing. Before the water arrived, Oldtown still existed. In the early 1970s, the U.S. government approved the New Melones Dam project in California. Entire neighborhoods were ordered to leave. Families who had lived there for generations were forcibly relocated. Homes, churches, cemeteries, all were abandoned. Then the dam gates closed and the valley disappeared beneath the water. Oldtown was never destroyed. It was drowned. Today, Lake New Melones looks peaceful, but locals know what lies below. When water levels drop during dry summers, remnants of the town reappear. Broken foundations, staircases leading nowhere, rusted fences, and grave markers emerging from the mud. That's when the disappearances happen. Almost every summer, swimmers or boaters vanish without warning. No struggle, no calls for help. Sometimes only a single item is found floating days later. A shoe, a shirt, a towel. The bodies are often never recovered. Rescue teams blame cold water, sudden drop-offs, or submerged debris. Locals blame something else. They say the flooded streets still exist below the surface, that people swim into places that were once doorways, alleys, or basements, that underwater currents pull victims down into structures that should not be there anymore. Some divers claim they hear knocking sounds underwater. Others report feelings of panic and disorientation for no clear reason. Oldtown was erased from maps, but it was never erased from the lake. And every summer, the water seems to take something back. At night, the water near the Coosawhatchee Dam looks calm. Too calm. Locals know better. They don't swim there after sunset. They don't fish. And they don't talk loudly about what's beneath the surface. Before the dam was built in the early 20th century, this area held a small boarding school for black children, one of the few places where they were allowed to study. When the Reservoir project began, the school was shut down. The students were relocated. The buildings were never properly dismantled. They were simply flooded. Divers who entered the water decades later reported something disturbing. Not structures, those were expected, but light. Small moving points beneath the surface, appearing in rows, drifting slowly, then vanishing. Witnesses described them as classroom lights, as if lessons were still happening. Some claimed they heard faint sounds underwater, tapping, scraping, something like chalk on a board. Others reported sudden drops in temperature and equipment failures near the dam's deepest section. Official explanations point to bioluminescent organisms, reflections, or electrical interference. But those explanations don't account for one detail. The lights appear only during the school year months. They disappear completely in summer breaks. No formal investigation was ever completed. The site remains open, unmarked, and undocumented. But locals still call it the same name, the school that never closed. Maps remember places the way they once were, not the way they are now. And Owens Lake in California is a reminder that disappearance does not always mean silence. At the beginning of the 20th century, Owens Lake was a vast body of water stretching across the Owens Valley until its rivers were diverted to supply Los Angeles, slowly draining the lake and leaving behind a dry, cracked basin that today looks lifeless and empty. But before the water vanished, something unsettling happened. As water levels rose and fell during the lake's final decades, entire groves of trees were submerged along the shoreline, their branches spreading beneath the surface like open hands, turning parts of the lake into hidden traps for swimmers, boats, and fishermen who ventured too close. Local records describe drownings that occurred without warning, as people were pulled under by unseen branches and tangled roots, disappearing in water that appeared calm and shallow from above. After the lake dried, the dead trees remained, bleached and twisted by sun and salt, standing where water once moved, preserving the outline of a lake that no longer exists. Over time, locals began to speak of something else. On quiet days, when the wind moves through the skeletal branches, some claim the sound resembles whispered names carried across the empty lakebed, as if the trees were repeating the identities of those who never made it out. There is no scientific explanation for the voices, only wind, wood, and memory, but the stories persist, passed down by those who grew up near the lake. Owens Lake is dry now. The records of diversion exist, the drownings are documented, and yet, when the wind is right, some say the lake still remembers. Rivers are meant to carry things away, washing the past downstream until it disappears. But the Blackwater River in Florida seems to do the opposite, holding on to what was never meant to surface again. Decades ago, a low-lying farm near the river was deliberately flooded as part of a regional water project, submerging fields, buildings, and the remains of land that already carried a violent history long before the water arrived. Local records and oral histories describe the area as a site of repeated lynchings during the early 20th century, events that were never officially investigated and were quietly erased from public memory as the land changed hands. When the river swallowed the farm, it also sealed whatever evidence remained beneath layers of dark, tannin-stained water, creating a place that divers now describe as unusually disorienting and oppressive. Experienced divers exploring the submerged structures report sudden drops in visibility, unexplained equipment malfunctions, and a strange phenomenon in which their masks fog instantly, even in stable conditions. It is during these moments, when vision blurs and sound becomes distorted, that some divers claim to hear screams, distant, muffled, and impossible to locate, echoing through the water before vanishing as suddenly as they appear. No physical source for the sounds has ever been identified, and no recordings have captured them clearly, leaving only personal testimonies repeated in hushed conversations among those who dive the river. The flooding is documented. The history is documented. The river is real. And yet, many who enter the Blackwater say it feels less like a river and more like a place that remembers. Artificial lakes are designed to erase what came before them, covering towns, roads, and memories beneath still water. But Fontana Reservoir in Arizona seems unwilling to let its past remain buried. Before the dam was built, the valley held a small mining settlement, home to workers who spent their lives underground, carving tunnels through rock and dust in search of ore, until the decision was made to flood the area and force the community to leave. Houses were abandoned, equipment was left behind, and the entrances to the mines were sealed or forgotten as water slowly rose, swallowing the settlement and turning an active town into a silent shape beneath the surface. At night, fishermen and rangers have reported seeing small lights appear far from the shore, hovering just below or above the waterline, flickering briefly before vanishing without leaving ripples or reflections. The lights are often compared to old mining lamps, the kind once worn on helmets, moving slowly as if following invisible tunnels where no tunnels should exist anymore. Boaters who attempt to approach the lights say they disappear as the distance closes, while sonar scans reveal irregular structures on the lakebed that match no known natural formations. There is no confirmed explanation for the lights, and no official records acknowledge electrical sources beneath the reservoir, leaving only eyewitness accounts repeated over generations. The reservoir is real, the mining town existed, the flooding is documented, but on certain nights the water seems to glow, as if the miners never truly left. Lakes are often described as peaceful, reflective places, but Lake George in New York carries a stillness that feels less like calm and more like restraint, as if something beneath the surface is waiting. In the early 20th century, part of the shoreline near the lake was home to an old correctional facility, a structure built close to the water and later abandoned when plans were made to alter and flood sections of the surrounding land. During that period, records mention a young nurse assigned to the prison infirmary, a quiet figure known for walking the grounds at night, tending to inmates who were ill or injured, and keeping largely to herself. When the area was flooded, the prison structures were submerged, but the nurse never left with the others. Official documents list her as missing, presumed drowned during the final days of evacuation, though no body was ever recovered and no clear account of her last moments was recorded. For decades, boaters and locals have reported seeing a pale figure near the water when heavy fog rolls across the lake, usually just before dawn or late at night, standing motionless along the shore or moving slowly where the prison once stood. The figure is often described as wearing white, faint and indistinct, appearing only for seconds before dissolving into the mist as if it were never there at all. No photographs have confirmed the sightings, and no scientific explanation has been offered beyond misidentification and illusion. The prison existed, the flooding occurred, the nurse is missing, and when the fog thickens over Lake George, some say she is still there, walking the edge of a place that never let her go. The Mississippi Delta has always been shaped by water, by floods that arrive quietly and leave entire lives rewritten. But some places beneath its surface are said to refuse being forgotten. Several decades ago, a small rural village in the Delta was intentionally flooded as part of a flood control project, forcing families to abandon homes, fields, and roads that had existed for generations until the rising water erased every visible trace. What remained was a wide, calm stretch of water that appeared harmless, almost motionless, especially on windless days when the surface lay flat and silent. That is when the reports began. Fishermen and locals navigating the flooded area described sudden, violent tugs on their boats, sharp pulls to the side that occurred without warning, even when the engine was idle and the water showed no current. Some compared the sensation to hitting submerged debris, but inspections found nothing beneath the hulls, no logs, no lines, no visible obstacles that could explain the force. Others described it differently, saying it felt less like an impact and more like resistance, as if something beneath the surface had grabbed hold and then let go. The phenomenon was most often reported at dusk or early morning, when the delta is quiet and the water reflects the sky like glass. No official explanation has ever been confirmed, and the flooded village exists now only in land records and fading memories. The flooding happened. The village existed. The boats are real. And in the still waters of the Mississippi Delta, some say the past still pulls back. Lakes are often built to bring calm and recreation, but Kinkaid Lake in Illinois hides a structure that was never meant to be forgotten, resting in silence beneath its surface. Before the lake was created, a narrow concrete bridge built in the 1920s crossed a low valley, carrying cars and farm trucks between small communities that existed long before the water arrived. Local accounts describe a violent incident that occurred on that bridge late one night when a car carrying several people was deliberately forced to the edge and pushed over, plunging into the darkness below before anyone could stop it. When the area was later flooded to form Kinkaid Lake, the bridge disappeared beneath the rising water, along with the remains of the vehicle and the unanswered questions surrounding what truly happened that night. Divers have confirmed that the bridge still exists on the lakebed, preserved in eerie detail, its railings intact and its surface coated in silt and shadow. But it is not the sight that unsettles those who enter the water. Divers and boaters have reported hearing sharp metallic sounds beneath the surface, a sudden screech like tires skidding across concrete, followed by a dull, echoing impact that seems to travel through the water itself. The sounds are brief, impossible to record, and often heard in areas where the submerged bridge is known to lie. There are no moving vehicles, no currents strong enough to explain it. No official explanation. The bridge is real. The lake is real. And sometimes, beneath Kinkaid Lake, the past still breaks. Churches are built to anchor communities, to stand longer than the people who gather inside them. But at Riverbend in Virginia, even faith was eventually submerged. Before the river was widened and controlled, a small church stood near a bend in the water, serving nearby farms and families for generations, its bell marking time for services, weddings, and funerals alike. When the decision was made to flood the area as part of a water management project, the congregation relocated, but the church itself was left behind, too costly to move and deemed unimportant compared to progress. As the water rose, the building disappeared, and eventually only the bell tower remained visible until it too sank beneath the surface, taking the iron bell with it. Divers later confirmed that the church still stands below, collapsed but recognizable, and that the bell remains in place, its chains corroded, broken, and long since reduced to rust. And yet, locals living along the shore tell the same story. On certain nights, precisely around midnight, a deep, hollow ringing can be heard traveling across the water, slow and deliberate, like a single toll echoing from beneath the river itself. There is no mechanism left to move the bell, no current strong enough to swing it, no confirmed recordings. The flooding is documented. The church existed. The bell is still there. And in Riverbend, Some say time is still being counted by something that never accepted being silenced. Thank you for watching. Your comments mean everything to us. Share your thoughts, theories, or even your own encounters. You might just inspire the next story we tell. If this one left you unsettled, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's so much more unexplained waiting for us.